074, authorizing the reappointment of municipal court judge.
Make a motion to approve resolution.
Look, Kelly.
It's fine.
That's that motion.
No, she can give a report before we make a motion.
Oh, all right. Well, I wanted to give you an audience.
Trying to get her used to speaking in front of us.
I don't know that I have anything different from the workshop. The judge's appointment term is up at the end of this year. State law requires a reappointment by December 1st. And it's up to the mayor and council who they would like to appoint and approve.
Okay, council's pleasure.
You make a motion, I'll second it. So moved.
Councilmember Steiger, would you like to speak to your motion?
Let's do workshop and everything, it's self-explanatory.
Councilmember Holt.
Judge Rochelle has been here since '98, did an excellent job, and worked our police department, and I can't think of a better candidate for the job.
Any other comments from council? Any comments from the audience? Roll call of council, please.
Councilmember Holding?
Aye.
Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
Councilmember McMahon?
Aye.
Councilmember Putnam?
Aye.
Councilmember Steiger?
Aye.
Councilmember Walker?
Aye.
Councilmember Burbank?
Aye. Motion carries. Next item is resolution number 2013-075, authorizing the execution of Steward County's proposed contract amendment number 11.
After the workshop, it was requested that I provide sort of a overview of the revenue for the project and the expenditures for the project. I think I sent it to most of you via email, and then a few of you I placed it in your box. As you can see, the estimated costs, including this design amendment, is approximately $4.7 million. Revenue, TIB says we have $3.56 million still available for our TIB funds for Stewart Road. I've removed $1 million of that to set aside to put to the Valentine for the construction of the intersection on the engineer's estimate of what they believe it is. It's more than what the Stewart Road engineer had, but it's what the Valentine Avenue engineer has estimated to be, and I'll err on the high side there. We have a Public Works Trust Fund loan for water main replacement on the Stewart Road corridor for $800,000. We also have some water funds available that were dedicated to replacement of AC mains, which we can use for the project, as well as we've had a webstone surcharge, and we can use some of those funds. All in all, we're at about $4.6 million, which leaves us about $150,000 short. With that, TIB will oftentimes provide additional funds if the project is short, because they like to see their projects completed. Staff has the ability to award an additional 10% of what they have, so at a little over $4 million was the original grants for the Stewart Road corridor. That would be $400,000, and we're below that dollar amount. So I believe that that is feasible, that we would get the additional funds, if needed, from TIB. We do have some other revenue sources in the city. I think that we're not using all of our water funds. There's still monies left there, so I think there's it's a small gap that we need to fill. You'll also notice that the traffic signal is scheduled to be a latecomer agreement, because many people are going to benefit from that new signal at the intersection of Thornton. The property owner to the north benefits. The short plat south and east of that intersection, when that property was short platted, there was a stipulation that they would contribute to the signal. It was not stated how much that would be. We have to go through the process of determining how we're going to allocate those charges. But we've got a formula in mind, and we're going to sit down and do that this week to come up with that so we can start the process rolling on the latecomer agreement. Hopefully that answers all your questions about that. I've got some bad news, though, and that is we believed we had $612,000 for the trail on Steward Road, and that money was pulled away from the city at the end of June of this year because of non-action by the city on that issue. There apparently will be possibly some calls for grants next year that would be able to replace those funds, or it's possible we can get money from TIB to replace the funds. I'm going to start some dialogue with TIB on exactly how much sidewalk they want us to have. If we have to go beyond Valentine, or if we can just fill in between Thornton and Valentine for now, with the idea that the other two segments of the trail are dead ends this time. It might be better to wait until another time to put those in there, since they don't go anywhere. And that's a conversation I want to have with TIB to find out exactly what they want to hold us to on the double sidewalk issue. Usually there's one sidewalk on both sides. And then we can refine what costs are associated with those sections of trail. And then there may be other grants also that we thought we had that might not be there, but I'm still trying to get the details on those.
Councilmember McCann.
So that instead of $460,000 on the trail, is that the number?
We had 612 for the Steward Road section of the trail. That was to take it from 167 all the way to Butte. And that was taken back by Puget Sound Regional Council because the city had not acted on it. In talking with staff today at Puget Sound Regional Council, they had been directed not to talk to staff at the city. So consequently, they were left uninformed as to what was happening with those funds.
So is that, I wonder if that's something that we might be able to remedy?
That $612,000, I do not think is going to be remedied. We were already up against kind of a time limit on it anyway. That we kept asking for extensions, and they were getting a little tired of extending. Had this project, when I was with the city before, the plan was that this was going to be under construction this year, in which case it wouldn't have been an issue. Unfortunately, things changed, and so it has gone away. Like I said, there's still some additional funds that should be available for the PSE corridor, and I'm trying to find out if those still exist. It's possible that those funds aren't available anymore either, in which case we have to go back to the drawing board on finding the funding.
Is the money that PSRC already reallocated to other South County projects?
Some of it may have been, yes.
They put out an announcement earlier
Right.
this month that they were reallocating certain tax funds to Renton and Tukwila and other South County projects.
In all likelihood, is those funds. Because what happens is you have to give them quarterly updates as to where you are in the process. You have to obligate your funds. If they're not obligated and they're just sitting around, nothing's happening, they want them used. And the reason is the federal government says, well, we've given you all this money and you're not doing anything with it. I guess we don't need to give you money anymore because you're just sitting holding it in the bank. And so they're trying to manage the money to make sure that they continue to have that stream coming in from the federal government.
Councilman Steiger, you had a question?
Is this controlled, the money that's controlled by Dept of Ecology?
It's not actually controlled by them. They manage it on the other side, but Puget Sound Regional Council is the one who actually controls it.
So they're the ones that, so it was out of Dept of Ecology's hands?
Yes, it was. And his staff wasn't fully up to date on it either. They said, well, it's off the tip, but I know that when I checked in June, it was still on there.
Because he told me that he was doing everything in the world to keep us afloat.
Right.
All of the monies, and that if we had a problem, he would let us know. And I I've heard nothing further.
And Dick is no longer with DOT either. He left at the end of last month,
Oh,
so.
there's my in-source.
I'm trying to get in touch with the various agencies and keep them up to date as to what we're doing to try and hold on to as much of it as we can.
Okay, we really gotta watch her, Milwaukee then in West Valley.
Right, well, Milwaukee the construction money was already taken away, a little over, $550,000. We only have design money now. We only have design money for West Valley.
Well, I know all that.
And they used to fund cradle to grave. They would fund from the beginning to the end, and what happens is these projects would extend over 5 or 6 years. The costs would go up from what the original estimate was, and then there wasn't enough money to complete the project. So now they say, okay, come into us with a design budget and maybe right-of-way acquisition. Then when you get through those phases, then we could start looking at construction money. Because too often the costs start to escalate during the process of design. It gets time spreads out, so that adds to the cost. And they don't want to have a project that's not going to be completed. They would rather work on getting projects completed. So if we have shovel-ready projects, it's a lot easier than to go in and get that construction money, because they can say, see, we're ready to go to the street. It is.
Other questions from Councilmember Putnam?
When you say PSRT was directed not to communicate with staff about this, you know where that direction came from? Was that on their end, or?
No, it was not on their end. It came from the city.
Okay. Sort of what I suspected. So that's $1 million between Milwaukee and that's $1 million in grant money that we had at the beginning of the year that we no longer have.
Correct.
Councilmember Garvey.
Can any part of those monies be reapplied for? Or?
Well, the monies that were not allocated and not used by the city, what happens is they create a primary list that they award to. They have a backup list. So if projects run under budget, they can take and reallocate that money to other projects. Because nothing was done, that money was reallocated to those secondary projects so that they could move them forward. So what we have to do is we have to go back, stand in line again, reapply, and hope that we can get some funds.
For next year?
Correct.
Any other questions, comments from council? So back to the original resolution, is there, what's council's pleasure?
Move to approve resolution 2013-075.
Would you like to speak to your motion, Councilmember Putnam?
We need to keep moving on what we can.
Councilmember Holsey?
Same thing.
Any other comments? Councilmember McMahon?
So as I'm looking at and maybe you talked about this last week in the workshop, and I'm sorry, but I'm looking at the supplemental agreement itself, number 11.
Yes.
And the original, it looks like to date we're about 4.5 times with the first 10 supplementals, not all of them in possible, but the first 10 supplementals were about 4.5 times the original agreement budget, and this would put us at a full 5 times that, or do we expect this to continue to?
This takes us through plans ready to go to bid.
So this should be the last one?
The only reason there would be another supplement is if we are going to retain the same firm to do construction management. This is TIB funding. TIB funding is not as onerous in the management of the construction contract as something that is federally funded. You want to have an inspector on board in the field to make sure that the contractor is fulfilling the requirements of the construction contracts, but the office paperwork is considerably less. Current staff can probably complete that themselves.
Any other questions from council? Questions from the audience? Okay, roll call council, please.
Councilmember Putnam?
Aye.
Councilmember Steiger?
Aye.
Councilmember Walker?
Aye.
Councilmember Garvey?
Aye.
Councilmember Holsey?
Aye.
Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
Councilmember McMahon?
Aye.
Thank you.
Trying to figure out that word.
Oh. Okay, next on the agenda, resolution 2013-076, setting the two-year Department of Ecology coordination convention.
This is a biannual grant that we get to do hazardous waste collection, oil, tires, appliances, etc., at Alpac Elementary. We do one a year. Algona does another one a year. They're both held, one in the spring, one in the fall at Alpac Elementary. We pay for ours. Algona, I believe, pays for theirs. But they're all sort of wrapped in together. It allows the citizens to be able to come somewhere closer to be able to get rid of these things that are not part of the typical waste stream that need to be done. The grant, basically, this grant, coupled with the one we get from King County, covers the whole cost of the program. It's more of a paperwork shuffle than anything else. The one thing that we're doing as part of our NPDES requirements is public education on stormwater issues. We, in the future, will have a booth set up at these events to provide that education. It's one way to reach out. As long as people are coming, we can remind them that, you know, there's certain things that aren't supposed to be dumped in the storm drains. There's things to do to protect the storm drains and the receiving waters downstream.
Questions from council? Council pleasure.
Move to approve resolution 2013-075? Oh, no, not 075, second.
Second.
Councilmember Putnam?
It's been a good project in the past, it'd be good to see.
So, keep this is green, that's
Yep.
very money.
Okay, any other comments from council? Councilmember Steward?
Do we have any good dates set on these?
We do not have the date set yet. We have a vendor who works with us, Paul Devine, who usually sets those dates as he gets up. He coordinates with the person who's taking the tires, the person who's taking the oil. There's several different partners that he has to work with to coordinate. And, it's just one in the spring and one in the fall.
Any other questions from council? Questions from the audience? Roll call of council, please.
Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
Councilmember Mann?
Aye.
Councilmember Putnam?
Aye.
Councilmember Steiger?
Aye.
Councilmember Walker?
Aye.
Councilmember Garberding?
Aye.
Councilmember Halsey?
Aye.
Thank you.
At the workshop, I had brought up another issue that I really need to get resolved, so if someone can make a motion to amend the agenda so that we can add this issue about the property acquisition on Valentine Avenue. I can answer your questions. I sent an email out and put things in boxes so that everyone had the information. I can explain it a little bit better now.
Move to suspend the rules to allow addition to the agenda.
All in favor?
Okay. So the property on Valentine Avenue, the original assessment from the appraiser was $6 a square foot, which made the assessment, the assessment or the purchase price a little over $28,000. There's some fencing that was appraised at $1,400, so the whole appraisal was listed, or whole purchase price was listed at $29,700. The property owner said, but what about the trees that you're taking? He said, these trees, he hired an arborist, said the trees are worth $18,000. So the appraiser went back, got in touch with their own arborist, who came in and said, well, the trees are worth $86.75, going to a nursery and saying, here's what the trees are, here's the quantities. Now, of course, that doesn't necessarily replace like for like, because the trees that have been there have been established, etc. In the property evaluation, one of the things they do is they can adjust it to what the assessor has for the property value. And the assessor actually has $7.13 per square foot. So when you apply the $7.13 per square foot to from the assessor's evaluation, and then you add 10%, which is an administrative settlement that usually occurs on these appraisals, to try and negotiate, because the last thing you want to do is go to condemnation if you can avoid it. And then you add in the value of the trees. we're at 43,847. It's much more than the 10% added, but there's justification for it now. But because it's more than that original 10% of the original offer, I would just like a motion and approval to allow the city representative to sign this offer to the property owner. If I've made it, I hope I've made it clear. It gets a little confusing.
I move to allow the negotiating party to settle at the amount of $46,847 on the, property for right-of-way acquisition.
Would you like to speak to your motion?
Start off, trees are invaluable, they grow in value as they get older and bigger. And, it's a lot cheaper than going through litigation.
Councilmember Walker?
I just have a few questions. So, how far off between this offer and the property owners requesting?
Well, this added $14,000 to the offer. And they said the value of the trees, which is the only thing they were trying to recover, was $18,000. So we're over 75% of the way there.
Okay. And then, where do these additional funds come from?
Currently, when we first budgeted the Valentine Avenue project, we were expecting about $2.5 million for right-of-way acquisition. We're at about $1.25 million, and we're more than halfway there. So we're well within budget of what we expected for right-of-way acquisition.
Councilmember Steward?
It was 43, does that include the 10% or was it to the 8 plus the 10?
That includes the 10%.
Okay.
Any other questions from council? Councilmember Jones?
Concern I have, Jim, is we set a value specifically to you right now, then if they reject it, you're gonna have to come back here, so.
And we may, yes.
So, do we want to leave it open, general open, to provide them an offer, and then if they turn that down, then we can negotiate a new offer that could come here for a settlement, or?
Oh, we wouldn't want to do that in open session. Yeah, we got it.
No, I know, I'm just throwing stuff out, we're already
I
showed
think
a
we
hand.
just move forward with the motion
Okay.
that we have on the floor, is my opinion. I'll take other comment from council, but I think we would move forward with the motion.
So, we tied the offer to the assessor's square footage value. If we do that here, does that set a precedent for the other less than half that aren't yet
The
settled?
few that are remaining.
Yeah, I mean, would that, I'm assuming that's gonna drive up those costs.
It potentially could. I look at these appraisals and I scratch my head sometimes trying to figure it out because they're not all the same rate per square foot. It varies, and there's reasons why it varies. If you have a larger parcel of land, sometimes that value per square foot can be more because there's more flexibility in what you can do with the land. And so the appraisals, I think it's part science, part art, and part voodoo magic. And it's the way it is.
Yeah, because part of me's a little nervous about tying the offer to the assessor's appraised value versus some kind of value of the trees, because the trees, I'm assuming, would be less transferable ecological.
We have some value tied to the trees, though, and to some other physical improvements on the property that will be removed. It's not strictly the land. That is a component. It's about 65% of.
It's an ingredient that goes into the cost.
Correct.
Not the sole, okay, good.
Correct.
Any other questions from Councilmember Jones?
I'm gonna change this around a little bit. Now, my understanding when we were doing the Valentine Road project and the, right-of-way acquisition, that anything under the 25,000 mark you got handled by the city representative, but anything above, why are we discussing now a proposed purchase value instead of waiting until an accepted value?
Because we have to make an offer. We cannot, and we made an original offer based upon the appraisal. The property owner came back and said, that's not good enough, and here's why. Well, now we're making an offer that is different from how the other offers were established. It's acceptable, but it's still different. And it does not fall in with the original approved format for right-of-way acquisition.
Well, that's what I want.
And we're deviating from that slightly, and so because we have this deviation, it's in staff's best interest to get authorization from council since it's a large expenditure.
Any other questions from council? Questions from the audience? Roll call, council?
Councilmember Holden?
Aye.
Councilmember Jones?
Aye.